We are live on TikTok. We are live on YouTube. Week 16 of the NFL season. We got a great Thursday night football game coming up between the Denver Broncos and the LA Chargers. This one is in LA. This feels like one of the most straightforward Thursday night football games from a fantasy football perspective that we have had all season. I'm going to talk through every single angle of this game, every player in this game, what it means for fantasy, and we're going to, of course, get to all the start sits tonight in the semifinals in most leagues of the fantasy football season. It's going to be a great Thursday night. I got good vibes tonight, guys. We are into the semis in 5 of my 7 high stakes leagues. Only got knocked out of one league last week in a game where I played a team that put up 180 and the other league that was already out of the playoffs. So we're doing great. We are excited for the fantasy football semifinals. And there's really only 2 guys you want to start tonight. 3 if you include Cameron Dicker, the kicker. But it's Ladd, it's Courtland Sutton, and that's pretty much the end of the list tonight, guys. It's pretty much the end of the list. And I really don't even think you want to play the defenses in this game. They're definitely viable. We'll talk through some of that as well, but we'll get through everything to do with this game coming up in about a couple of hours on our TV screens. Happy Thursday night, guys. We're going to get to so many start sits tonight. I expect some Ladd McConkey questions. I expect some Courtland Sutton questions. I really think there's going to be some Bo Nix, Justin Herbert questions too that might make some sense. They're in the maybe worth it category tonight. They're right around the QB 12 range, like back end QB 1s this week. But we're going to get to it all. All right. Green Eggs and Sam. Wow, that's a great one. We'll get to that for sure. All right, let's just talk through this game quickly before we dive into the start sits, though. And you know it. If you're out of the fantasy playoffs, we still got that free player prop that we're riding with tonight, too. Still lots to be excited for, even if you're out of the fantasy playoffs. All right, let's get to it. Let's start with the Chargers side of this game. The Chargers are 2.5-point favorites in this game at home. I've been to the stadium before. I haven't been to every stadium. It's on my bucket list, but I have been to this one. Not a real home stadium. I also went to a game when I went, I think it was 2 years ago. They played the Chiefs, so over half the fans were Chiefs fans. But this isn't a normal home game environment for a team like the Chargers. They're still 2.5-point favorites here. These two teams did already play, and the Chargers won that game in Denver. But the Chargers defense has not been as good of late. They are really, Herbert in the passing attack has struggled over the last 5 games. We have not seen Justin Herbert go over 17.6 fantasy points since week 12. Last time he was a top 10 QB in fantasy was week 11. Has been under 220 passing yards in 4 straight games. I mean, we've seen games, guys, where if it's not Ladd McConkey, I mean, there's just nothing else being generated from the receivers in this offense. And as much attention as Quentin Johnson has got, I think one of the guys that should be getting more scrutiny is Josh Palmer, who's having a terrible season. Absolutely no games of at least 15 fantasy points. He has only 4 games this season over 60 receiving yards. He's been under 40 receiving yards almost every single week. Last week against the Bucs in a great spot, gets 2 catches, 10 yards. Last week, the Chargers got throttled by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A really good spot for the passing attack. Herbert only throws 195 in 2 TDs. I really don't want to start Herbert tonight in fantasy. There's one spot where there's some spots where I think it might make sense. There's not a great deep quarterback options this week with the matchups out there. So we'll talk through some of that, but this is not a good matchup for Justin Herbert versus the Chargers. They're allowing the 7th fewest points per game to QBs this season. We did see that massive Jameis Winston game against them on Monday night where Winston set the Browns all-time record of passing yards. But that was really the only big game outside of Lamar Jackson that we've seen. A-Rich had 16 points last week. Mahomes had 16. I mean, we definitely can get a 16-point game out of Herbert here, but it doesn't feel like there's a true ceiling. You're starting Ladd McConkey, though, guys, in almost all spots. I saw that question earlier, like Jacoby or Ladd. We're going Ladd. BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr. or Ladd. Man, I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. is so tough to bench Right now, he's got, I think I was looking at it before this because I knew we were going to get some Brian Thomas Jr. start sits on this live because, not an easy start sit. He's projecting worse than Ladd. He's projecting worse than Sutton. I think it's a tough call. But I think I might play him over Sutton. We'll talk through that probably later in a different start sit, but I'm playing Ladd over Brian Thomas Jr. I am, and I do think that makes sense. I think the floor for Ladd is just a bit safer attached to Justin Herbert, the number one receiver. I don't think we see a ton of the top corner for the Broncos shadowing Ladd in this game. They move Ladd around a lot in the offense. He's often coming out of the slot. Surtain usually does not follow receivers into the slot. The last time they played the Broncos, Ladd only had 4 for 43. He was their leading wide receiver in that game. But yeah, I'm playing Ladd. I do not want to bench Ladd. There's a very small group of receivers I'm playing over Ladd McConkey here on Thursday night. And it actually might only be 12 receivers, 11 receivers. T. Higgins, I think we'll probably get some T. Higgins question, maybe, because he hasn't practiced yet this week. Like, I think I would go Ladd and Sutton over him. I have Ladd and Sutton close together. I would play Ladd over Sutton if I had to make that call, though. And as good as this secondary has been, again, Pat Surtain, probably the best corner in the league. I don't think we see a ton of Surtain, though, versus Ladd. And we've seen at times the second receiver, the receiver not covered by Surtain, have big games because Surtain just completely shuts down the guy he's up against oftentimes. That sometimes funnels targets to the other receivers, especially in the slot. Jacoby Myers had 10 for 121, 22 fantasy points back in week 12. We saw Jerry Jeudy in that Jameis Winston game have the greatest revenge game literally of all time, 9 for 235 and a touchdown. I think that's probably above the ceiling for Ladd in this game. But Elijah Moore, he had 8 for 111 in that game too out of the slot. So yeah, Hopkins did fine. He had 9.6. Zay Flowers did well. Jalen Coker popped off. I do think you play Ladd tonight. Elite floor, elite ceiling, elite player. And as good as Brian Thomas Jr. has been, I'm still taking Herbert's top receiver option over Mac Jones. Top receiver option, Herbert or Purdy. Yeah, we'll get to the QB start sits for sure. I think I'd go Herbert there. The QB's ranking above Justin Herbert heading into week 16, the fantasy football playoff semifinals. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Lamar, Baker. I think all of those are very obvious. Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray, Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, Anthony Richardson. I think all of those are pretty clear too. A-Rich is close, but I'm going A-Rich, over Herb. I'm playing Herb over Bo Nix. I'm playing Herb over Jordan Love. That one's pretty close, but the pass volume is just really not there for Jordan Love. I do think the pass volume should be there because the Chargers, as bad as their passing attack's been, their rushing attack's been even worse. This offense, guys, has been really struggling over their last 6 games, but especially since J.K. Dobbins went down. I mean, they've had absolutely no rushing attack, like none. And actually, the Broncos are a similar story. We'll get there, but yeah, I would go Herb over Brock Purdy. I play him over Aaron Rodgers. That one's pretty close, man. I could see a case for Aaron Rodgers. I'd play him over Stafford. I could see a case for Stafford too. I'd play him over Jordan Love, over Drake May, Pat Mahomes, Tua, Russ, Caleb Williams, who has an interesting matchup because he did well last time he played them. But are we starting Bo Nix tonight? It depends who you're starting him over. So let's go to the Broncos side of this game. So for the Chargers, you're starting Ladd, and it's a really unique spot here for the offense where the offense has been struggling. Short week, good defense, at least over the course of the season that they're playing against. They should have Hayden Hurst back, but it's hard to expect him to play much. Stone Smart, he's had a pretty big role in the offense coming off his best game of the season, really back-to-back games. Stone Cold Smart, we talked about him a bunch on the Sunday Live, arguably the best name in the NFL. I mean, Stone Cold Smart, you got to be kidding me with the name. And now we got Brenton Strange in the mix too. But yeah, Stone Cold Smart, he's off the fantasy radar on this spot, I think, with Hayden Hurst back, but he should have a real role on this offense. One of Quentin Johnson or Josh Palmer is probably going to have to step up. One of them is probably going to be close to a goose egg. Definitely stay far away from them in fantasy. The other interesting quick note on the Chargers before we get to the Broncos side of this game, and then we get to the free player prop in this game, and then we also, of course, grind through all the start sits. We are going to get to hundreds of start sits on this live. Love seeing everyone already tuned in. We're 10 minutes in here because, to me, it means I know out there you guys are in your fantasy football semifinals, and man, that gets me amped. Absolutely amped to see you guys still advancing. We got 2 games left in most leagues. One week at a time, one decision at a time. And again, I think this starts at decisions tonight. They're going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to be able to get to a lot of them. All right, Kamani Vidal. He's got to be mentioned here. Gus Edwards he's dust. He's been dust. I think for a decent amount of time, just to touch on Gus Edwards quickly, he is a complete zero in the receiving game. He has 2 catches this season for 3 yards. Last week, we got him pegged at 1 route. He is a complete zero in the receiving game. They do trust him, it seems like, a little bit more at the goal line, but please do not start Gus Edwards. He's been under 40 total yards in 5 straight games. That includes all these games where Dobbins has been out. And Vidal took over snap share-wise last week. They were down in that game, but he played a season-high, career-high 67% of the snaps. He still only had 3 carries. He hasn't been great efficiency-wise on the ground, but he is a good receiver. He's a good receiving back. He actually scored that long receiving touchdown in his first career game. That was actually against the Broncos. He had 13.1 points last time versus the Denver Broncos. I think he does have a real receiving role this week, and wouldn't be shocking to see the snap share trend continue. He definitely gives the Chargers more in explosiveness and just upside than Gus Edwards is giving them right now. And he's definitely the primary receiving back. All right, let's go to the Broncos. Cameron Dicker, by the way, he's a top 10 kicker. He's been unreal, really, for fantasy. Definitely startable here in this spot at home. So Bo Nix, yeah, are we starting Bo Nix tonight? I really don't want to. I don't feel great about Herbert or Bo Nix. They're both back in QB1s, though. So in some spots, you're going to have to start them. I don't think too many people are in the fantasy football semifinals with these guys, but I'm sure there's many of you out there in spots like this. The Chargers have been a good defense for most of the season, but over the last 6 weeks, it's been a different story. They've actually been a much worse defense over the last 6 weeks. I think in terms of defensive efficiency, adjusted for strength of opponent, before the last 6 weeks, they were top 5 in the NFL. In the last 6 weeks, they're in the bottom 10 of the NFL in adjusted efficiency against opponents, defensively again, for the Chargers. They played some pretty good QBs, to be fair, but again, adjusted for strength of opponent, they've still been a below average defense over the last 6 weeks. This defense is a lot less scary now than it was 2 months ago. Will Levis put up 19 points. Will Levis, he just got benched for Mason and Rudolph. Joe Burrow cooked for 29. That's the story for him every single week. Lamar cooked. He had 22. He's a top 5 QB. And even Baker Mayfield last week, he's having an incredible season. He had 29 points. Mahomes, he only had 14 points in a game that was actually pretty close. And then Kirk Cousins, he's obviously dust at this point and getting benched despite winning this past week. So yeah, not a terrible spot for Bo Nix, but he's definitely been pretty sporadic. He hasn't been over 16.5 points now in 2 straight games. It was a good spot for him last week versus the Colts. Last week, guys, versus the Colts, he threw 3 touchdowns. But on Sunday, guys, against the Indianapolis Colts, not a scary defense, Bo Nix threw for just 3.9 yards per pass attempt. 3.9. I mean, that is brutal. That's his lowest in a game since week 4 when he threw for 2.4 versus the Jets. I mean, way lower than his season average of 6.4. But guys, 6.4 yards per attempt, that's 33rd in the NFL. I mean, he has not been generating big plays in the passing game. Again, he threw 3 touchdowns, but 3.9 yards per attempt. He also threw 3 picks. He's thrown 5 picks now, 5 interceptions last 2 games. And again, it's not like the Colts were a good defense. The Chargers are a better defense than the Colts, as bad as they've been over the last 6 games. So Bo Nix is definitely a risky play. There's a floor there rushing-wise. He did have 23 rushing yards last week, which was the most he had in over a month on 8 rushing attempts, which was the most he's had in over 2 months. That definitely makes him viable in fantasy, gives him an okay floor. I don't think the ceiling's that crazy, guys. He threw 3 passing touchdowns last week and still didn't even hit 20 fantasy points. I think that gives you a good sense of his ceiling in a spot like tonight. So yeah, I'm looking to bench Bo Nix if I can, but there's certain spots that do make sense to start him. And then there's Courtland Sutton, who to me, he's in the same tier as Ladd. He's been really like one of my misses of the year. And I'm going to be posting some content soon in the next couple of weeks, reflecting on my hits, my misses, things I've learned heading into next fantasy season. Always love documenting that stuff at the end of the season so I don't forget what I learned by the time next draft season comes around. We're all watching training camp highlights that mean absolutely nothing. But Courtland Sutton was on my do not draft list, and that was a huge L for me. He's had at least 12 points now in 7 straight games. He's been incredibly consistent. He's averaging more points per game than I thought was possible this season. And the whole reason I was against Sutton, despite Judy being gone, was he's 29 now, and we have never really seen a true ceiling from Courtland Sutton before. Despite last season setting a career high in touchdowns, still didn't even see him go over 13 points per game last year. But we're starting to see it. 2 games over the last couple of months over 20 points, but it's really the floor that's been there. He only had 3 catches last week, but did score a touchdown. Just by far and away the top receiver on this team. He has not been under a 25% target share in 7 straight games. We haven't seen him under an 18% target share since week 2. That was the only game all season Courtland Sutton went under an 18% target share. I mean, the floor is just unreal, man. It's unreal. He's 4th in the among receivers in air yards this season. I mean, he's you look at the depth chart here, and it goes Sutton, and then it's just a hodgepodge of nobodies, really. We got Lil Jordan Humphrey, Vele, Troy Franklin. Marvin Mims has been getting a little bit more involved. He had 20 points back in week 13, had 4 catches last week too, only 25% snap share, though. Still really being used more as a gadget guy. Vele is the next highest projected receiver on this team. And we got to touch on Javonte Williams as well. Again, there's not many spots I'll be benching Sutton, not many spots I'll be benching. Do I play Sutton or Kupp? Yeah, we'll get there. I know starting Kupp is not an easy call after the donut last week, but we will get to that. Javonte Williams, guys, he has a total of 14 rushing yards on 18 carries in his last 3 games. Javonte Williams has 18 carries for 14 yards in his last 3 games. Among running backs with over 100 rushing attempts this season, there's 36 running backs this season with at least 100 rushing attempts. Javonte Williams ranks 35th out of those 36 running backs in yards per carry at 3.5 yards per carry. Javonte Williams has been bad this season, especially over the last few games. There's no Jaleel McLaughlin in this game, though. So he's definitely someone, you got to be aware of, likely to lead the backfield for the Broncos in this spot. Not the best matchup, really, versus the Chargers for the running backs. We did see the Buccaneers running backs do well last week, but those are 2 very successful and talented running backs from the season. This is not a successful or talented running back from this season, guys, with Javonte Williams. I doubt many people in the semifinals are considering starting him, but I want to bench Javonte, guys, tonight. You want to bench Javonte. I really don't think he's the best running back on the team tonight, even with Jaleel McLaughlin out. And I would love to see Audric Estime start to get more involved in this offense. He's also been bad, though, to be clear. It's not like he's been great. 4.4 yards per carry. It's better than Javonte's efficiency, but on much lower volume. And we haven't seen him go over 20 rushing yards since week 10. But we probably see a little bit more of Estime tonight with Jaleel McLaughlin out. But these guys they can't be started in fantasy because there's always a big split and they're so inefficient rushing the ball. And it's not a great matchup for them. Marvin Mims, Marvin Mims is probably going to get some run at running back too. Probably going to get some of the receiving work at running back. That was the second latest report about Marvin Mims. Peyton mad at itself for not using Mims at running back sooner. All right, that's the Broncos side of this game. Ultimately, I think this game ends up being close. I think I would take the Broncos at plus odds with the points in a game like tonight, but I do think the Chargers should be favored by a slight amount. I don't have a hard take here about the spread, about who's going to win tonight. I would lean towards the Broncos, though. I would lean towards the Broncos because you're getting better odds in the points. The over-under tonight's on the lower side of the week, too, which definitely bodes well. It's actually the lowest. It's the lowest over-under of the week. This is a lower projected total points than the Giants-Falcons game. It's actually a half point higher than the Jaguars-Raiders game. To put it into perspective, basically the same amount of points projected in this game tonight as the Jaguars-Raiders game. Absolutely banger of a game there between the Jaguars and the Raiders, by the way. That should have been a Thursday night game, but I digress. This game ended up getting flexed, I think, in the Thursday night over a different game that was there before. Anyways, let's get to the start-sits. Let's talk through the free player prop actually super quick. Then we'll get to the start-sits. And also, one note here, the Broncos, they already lost to the Chargers. The Broncos are 8-0 against teams this season with a losing record. They're 1-5, though, against the teams with a winning record. The Chargers do have a slight winning record here. So the free player prop tonight, guys, it is Kamani Vidal over 12.5 receiving yards. They're setting his receptions line, Kamani Vidal, at over 1.5 at like minus 170 odds. So the sports books are projecting Kamani Vidal to get at least 2 catches tonight. I agree with that. I think we see at least 2 catches from Vidal. He's averaging 12.4 yards per reception this season. One of those came as a big catch versus this Broncos team. It was like a 40-yard catch, I think he had in that game. 40-yard touchdown catch, right around that. Obviously a low volume yards per reception here. But Kamani Vidal could easily beat this prop line in a single catch. I think he gets at least 2 catches, easily could hit 3, 4, 5 catches in this game if the Broncos take a lead. And in both games where we saw Kamani Vidal get at least 2 catches, he beat this prop line. And last week, he just set a season-high career-high 67% snap percentage. There's no other running back on this team catching passes. Gus Edwards, we mentioned, he ran 1 route last week. He has 2 catches all season for 2 yards or 3 yards. So, yeah, I like this Kamani Vidal receptions line. And then you look at the matchup, too. It's not a bad matchup here versus the Broncos. They've been good versus running backs overall, but bad at stopping running backs in the receiving game. They're allowing the 3rd most catches per game to running backs this season, the 6th most receiving yards per game to running backs this season, the 3rd most receiving touchdowns to running backs this season. And I've not taken it as official prop tonight, but if you're looking for something a little bit spicier, I like Vidal to score, too. I think the odds there are pretty solid. He scored last time versus the Broncos. He's the most explosive and best running back that the Chargers have. And I think he's going to get some receiving work, has a chance to score in the receiving game too. So yeah, I like Vidal, and I think he's going to be pretty involved today. All right, that is the free player prop of the night. It is time to get into start-sit mode. It is the fantasy football playoffs, guys. One decision at a time. Every decision from here on out, it really could be the decision that wins or loses you your fantasy league. It's what it's all about, man. Why not start Lutz? All right, man. I didn't mean to get into the kicker stuff tonight, but Lutz is startable too. He actually projects better than Cameron Dicker in the Walter Picks app. I think I'd probably go Dicker over Lutz. Let's see. Yeah, they're both averaging 9.4 points per game. Start both. I'm fine starting both kickers. That's enough kicker talk though. All right. Why should I start Ladd over Jacoby Myers? Yeah, Jacoby Myers is a good option this week. I like Myers a lot. I still think I'm going Ladd there, though. Ultimately, Ladd has a very elite floor and ceiling tonight. We have seen, pull this up here against Jacoby Myers. I like Jacoby Myers versus the Jags. It sounds like Aiden O'Connell's going to start, which is a big deal. You got to put in perspective how bad you need to be. Desmond Ridder needs to be for Aiden O'Connell to be like this massive upgrade for all the weapons. I mean, it truly is the case. It's how bad Desmond Ridder has been. But yeah, I still think it's Ladd. It's a better matchup for Jacoby. Again, I don't think, though, Pat Surtain ends up lining up against Ladd too much here. We didn't see that much in their first matchup. Ladd didn't have an amazing game in that first matchup, 4 catches for 43 yards, but he only played 63% of the snaps. He was back to 89% of the snaps last week. That was actually his highest of the season. This is a playoff game. From both these teams' perspectives, it's a win or you're likely done situation for the NFL playoffs. That's why you're seeing Ladd, despite not playing in week 14 with the injury, dealing with knee, shoulder stuff, comes back week 15, 89% of the snaps, catches 5 passes, 58 yards, scores a touchdown. That is the floor for McConkey over his last 4 games. Over his last 8 games, we have seen 1 game where Ladd went under 4 catches, 5 catches, under 5 catches in his last 8. We've seen him go under 5 catches once. I mean, that is as bad as good of a floor as you can get. And it's a similar situation for Sutton. Like, just so by far, both these guys, just so by far the number 1 receivers on their offense. And it's really just not remotely close. We don't see them like dip below 18% target shares. And we've seen them both see these massive target shares over the course of the season. So yeah, I think the floor ceiling combo for Ladd is better than it is for Jacoby Myers on the Raiders offense. And Myers coming off obviously a bad game with Desmond Ridder. He still had 5 catches. I do like Jacoby Myers. Looks like he was limited on Thursday. He's probably fine. But yeah, it's a close one. I want to start Jacoby too, but I think Ladd's a better option. Ladd or Wilson? Garrett Wilson, I assume that is. Yeah, I'm playing Ladd. Let's go through the receivers. I'm playing over Ladd because it's a shorter list than the players I'm playing Ladd over. And this is basically the same list as it is for Sutton. So let's go through it. I'm starting Jamar Chase over Ladd and Sutton. That's easy. Puka, yeah, obviously. Nico, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, AJ Brown. We're not even talking about those. Those are easy. I saw someone ask about Cooper Kupp. Man, I think you got to go Kupp. I think you got to play Cooper Kupp over these guys, and it's not easy. Psychologically, not easy. Cooper Kupp gets a good matchup versus the Jets this week. They still like technically rank well versus wide receivers and points allowed, but the Jets defense is bad right now, guys. They have absolutely nothing to play for. They have no incentive to try to win. And we've seen them just get absolutely crushed by good receivers over the last month or so. Brian Thomas Jr., he dropped a 33-point game versus them last week. A lot of that did actually come out of the slot. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek both went over 20. Jason and Metcalf, they didn't do a ton. Josh Downs, though, he had 20. A lot of the production versus the Jets has come out of the slot. I still think this is close. Ladd actually is the best floor of these guys. I wouldn't knock you for going Ladd over Kupp, but I think I would go Kupp over Ladd and Sutton tonight personally. I'm not letting his donut scare me, and we have rarely seen floor games from Cooper Kupp. That Thursday night game was so brutal last week. I'm still not over that Thursday night game last week. Hopefully, this game is at least better than that. Obviously, a low bar to clear. That was maybe the worst game of the season, honestly. But the floor for Cooper Kupp outside of last week and outside of week 13, he's been over 15 in 6 of his last 8 games. Like it's still a good role for Cooper Kupp. He still played 85% of snaps. He only had 3 targets. Like he's going to get back to at least 6 targets. I think that Jets game could actually end up being pretty high scoring too. So that's it. Then I'm playing Malik Neighbors and Mike Evans and Devontae Adams over them too. I'm playing Neighbors, Evans, and Adams over McConkey and Sutton. End of list, though. That's the end of the list. So other than the obvious ones, again, the obvious ones, just to state them again quickly, Chase, Puka, Nico, Jefferson, Lamb, Amon-Ra, A.J. Brown, those guys, the really obvious ones that don't even be considering anyone tonight over those guys. Then the less obvious ones that I feel pretty good about, I'm going JSN, Cooper Kupp, Neighbors, Evans, and Adams over Ladd and Sutton. DK or Ladd? It's got to be Ladd, man. Got to be Ladd. Has to be. DK has been bad, really. I mean, he's like an okay floor, around 8 to 10 points, but he hasn't been over 12.5 points in over a month. And part of the problem for the Seahawks, the offensive line has been struggling. They in theory, the receivers have a good matchup this week, but that's only if the Seahawks offensive line can hold up versus this Vikings defensive line, which is very, very good. Herbert or Rodgers? Yeah, I think I lean Herbert over Rodgers, but it's close. I would not knock you for going Rodgers there. I think that we have them projected within half a point. McConkey or Tyreek? Yeah, man, that's a really tough call too. No Jalen Waddle. We get a Tyreek Hill with no Jalen Waddle in the Walter Picks app. By the way, we're live on TikTok and YouTube right now, guys. If you're watching live on TikTok, come to the YouTube live. Link is right in the TikTok bio. Better viewing experience. We're looking at a comparison between McConkey and Tyreek right now. Watching live on YouTube, by the way, guys, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. I know we're towards the end of the season, guys, but it still helps me out way more than you could possibly realize. I do appreciate that. And you guys are watching live on TikTok, I will not be able to see your comments unless you are following. That's how it works. So hit the follow button. I do appreciate it. Will Lutz is not a bad start. I don't hate Will Lutz tonight. So yeah, Tyreek Hill's got a higher ceiling, but a lower floor. Man, this is a tough call. I don't think he didn't practice today. He's like always takes rest days though, midweek. Only 5 points. Only 5 points versus the Texans last week with Waddle missing most of the game. He only had 2 catches despite playing 93% of the snaps. I think you go Ladd, man. I think you go Ladd over Tyreek. K-Sam, Javonte or Tajay Spears, PPR. Yeah, Zach, the projections are just not going to agree with me here, but you got to go Spears. Javonte, we were talking about him earlier. He's been one of the worst running backs in the NFL this season, among running backs with at least 100 rushing attempts. There's 36 running backs this season that have at least 100 rushing attempts, and he ranks 35th out of those 36 in yards per carry. I mean, I think like Estime is better than him. Not saying Estime will get more work than him. Jaleel McLaughlin is out, so Javonte is definitely going to project better. Let me pull up the latest on Pollard too. I think he unable to practice Wednesday. He'll probably end up playing again. But I mean, Spears at least has like a real ceiling. Spears also has a better matchup. Tajay Spears was the running back 3 last week. I mean, he only had 5 rushing yards. I think all of his carries were like on that 1 goal line stand, but he had 6 catches, 87 yards in a TD, played over half the snaps, looked great. You know, there's no reason for the Titans to put this like massive workload on Tony Pollard down the stretch. So yeah, I feel very good going Spears over Javonte personally, even though the projections there are definitely going to disagree with me. Nix or Daniels, that's got to be Daniels for sure. Would you trust Atlanta defense over Denver defense? Definitely trusting the Atlanta Falcons defense. I have the Atlanta Falcons defense in almost every single league of mine because I've been locked in to the playoffs for months now. You know, this is all I think about all year is the fantasy football playoffs. From draft day till now, I understand. I've been through this. enough years that this is all that counts. The regular season, it just does not matter nearly as much as the playoffs. And that's why once I lock into the playoffs, I'm just adding the defenses that play the New York Football Giants. And it didn't work out great in week 15, but it wasn't terrible either. I think the Ravens scored like 7 or 8 points. But yeah, you got to be playing the Falcons defense versus the Giants for sure. Ladd, Sutton, or Bucky at flex. Yeah, I'm going Ladd there. I'm playing Ladd over Bucky. I'm playing Ladd over Sutton too. Would you rather start Judy or McLaurin? Oh God, yeah, it's a tough call. I'd probably go Judy. I think you got to bench McLaurin. McMillan or Bateman. These are not Thursday night questions, guys. We're prioritizing the Thursday night start sits because we're going to be live all Sunday morning. We're going to get to all these guys on Sunday morning. But yeah, I'd lean McMillan here for sure. I know there's some games Saturday too, though. Actually, let me make sure I'm aware of which games start Saturday. I probably won't be able to go live on Saturday. Yes, the Texans, Chiefs, and Steelers, Ravens. Yeah, so if you got Texans, Chiefs, Steelers, Ravens starts sits too, I got you. This Bateman one, yeah. Bateman, I don't think he's even practiced yet this week. He might not play. He's questionable. So definitely going McMillan. There, Ladd or JT. Oh, this is an interesting one. I think it's probably Ladd over JT. That Jonathan Taylor fumble, man. Oh my gosh. You just don't see that very often in the NFL. Yeah, it's Ladd over JT, assuming that's a PPR league. Higgins or Ladd? Yeah, I knew we were going to get some Higgins questions tonight, and I think it's got to be, sorry, YouTube Live. I think it's got to be Ladd and Sutton over T. Higgins because Higgins hasn't practiced yet. You can't take that risk. When you have great options like Ladd and Sutton, I don't think it's worth taking the risk. Ladd over DJ Moore, yup. I'm playing Ladd over Brian Thomas, and I don't feel great about it. I feel a little queasy about that one. I would play McConkey over Garrett Wilson in PPR. Guys, you want to start Ladd McConkey. He's about as good of a floor-ceiling combo as it gets. Like, not the best, but he's in that top tier of what you get from a guy with his floor and ceiling. Again, he's had at least 5 catches in, what would we say, 7 of his last 8 games? 7 of his last 8 games. We're not counting week 14. He didn't play in week 14. So 7 of the last 8 games he played, and he has at least 5 catches. Last week, Ladd McConkey had a career-high snap percentage. He's had at least a 21% target share in back-to-back games. In week 13, he had 50% of the team's targets. You don't see that in the NFL. Thoughts on starting Broncos defense? Yeah, the defenses are, let's look at the defenses here. I don't really want to force the defenses out tonight. I don't hate them. We got the Broncos at number 9 defense. So yeah, Broncos defense over Chargers defense for sure. Let's take a look at how they've done in fantasy. Definitely, wow, yeah, they've been very, very good. This has been one of the most efficient defenses in the NFL. From an EPA perspective, they're actually number 1 by like a lot. From an adjusted efficiency perspective, there hasn't been a better defense than the Broncos. And it's shown in the fantasy points here. They've been the top 10 defense in 4 straight games. Man, I probably should put the Broncos in the must-start category tonight. The Chargers, wow, they've allowed not very many points to defenses, though. The Broncos only had 3 points against the Broncos. So the Broncos only had 3 points against the Chargers, the defense. We haven't seen any big games, no big games for any of these defenses versus the Chargers. Very interesting stuff. So yeah, not a must start, but you could do much worse. I mean, they've been a good defense this season. It's also, I think, a little bit harder sometimes offensively playing the same defense for a second time, plus the short week. So they're startable. Thursday night, extremely tough start to it. Alvin, man, how we doing? We've been grinding on these lives all season. Great to see you back in the live stream, guys. Seriously, shout out to all of you. It is the fantasy football playoffs. This is the best time of the year, man. This is what it all comes down to. All the work we put in. Extremely tough starts at flex and super flex. Neighbors, McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah, man, this is tough. You're not benching Puka. You're not benching Evans. I'm definitely with you on that. I also play Atlanta defense with Neighbors in my roster, or Green Bay defense versus the Saints. Just go with the Packers. Yeah, I mean, we got the Packers as the number 1 defense. That Saints offense has absolutely no hope. Alvin Kamara's out now. I mean, what's as bad as some of the injuries have been across the NFL, man, this Saints offense, they're without Derek Carr, without Taysom Hill, without Chris Olave. He actually might come back some point, but probably not this week. Now without Alvin Kamara, I mean, yikes, man. That offensive roster is looking less and less like an NFL roster every single week. So yeah, you got to be playing the Packers Monday night. That feels like a very good spot. Primetime game there too. But yeah, I think let's do this comparison. 3 different rookie receivers that I think the answer here is going to be Neighbors and McConkey. I think it's Neighbors over McConkey, and I think it's McConkey over Brian Thomas Jr. And again, I don't like benching Brian Thomas Jr., but this is a good situation you're in if you're benching Brian Thomas Jr. Walter Picksapp actually has him with the highest ceiling. Wow. And he's shown it, over the last few games. But I'm okay. It's not like these ceilings are that far behind from McConkey and Neighbors. I think the floors are a decent bit better in their respective situations. All three of these rookies have absolutely smashed this season. Malik Neighbors is already going to lead the NFL in target share. Like, if Neighbors gets one target in each of these last two games, like, I still think he leads the NFL in target share. That's how insane it is. And obviously he's getting more than one target. Thursday, pick 2, Lad, Cup, DJ Moore, ETN, Standard League. Wow, yeah, Standard League maybe changes this a little bit. It might change this, actually. Let's check this, because the Standard Leagues, the dynamic is definitely different here in Standard. This is why you got to understand your scoring settings. And this is why I'm not surprised, Freddie, to see you in the fantasy playoffs, including this scoring setting in the comment. Because, guys, if you are in this live stream at this point, you're in the top 95th percentile of fantasy managers. And you understand that the scoring settings matter a lot, which is why you understand why the Walter Picks app is so powerful for so many people. And guys, if you haven't checked out the Walter Picks app yet, I mean, you probably have. You're in the fantasy playoffs, but it is custom to your league settings, which is a big reason why it is much better than the other platforms out there. Let's check out Lad versus Cup in a Standard League. Yeah, Lad, wow, jumps Cooper Kupp in Standard. We had Kupp ahead of Lad in PPR. So among these receivers, it's Lad and Kupp for sure. So we're going to take DJ Moore out here. And I don't hate DJ Moore in Standard too, because he does get some carries. But I think I agree. I would play Kupp and Lad over him. Yeah, ETN's not quite there. Not a bad matchup for him against the Raiders. Actually a really good spot for him, but he's splitting time with Bigsby. I'm fine playing these two receivers even in a Standard League. I think that's fine. Probably a better chance for both Lad and Kupp to score than ETN and DJ Moore. All right, Terry or Downs. Not a Thursday or Saturday question here, but yeah, I want to bench Terry. I'm definitely playing Sutton over Terry. I'd play Lutz indoors tonight. Fine with that. Yeah, I meant to put Lutz next to Cameron Dicker here. I actually played Lutz over Cameron Dicker. Herbert or Purdy? I'm playing Herbert. Happy holidays, Sam. Happy holidays to you as well. Javonte, Pacheco, Sharp, or Rashad. You got to bench Javonte tonight. Like, all these guys, just way, way, way ahead of Javonte in my mind. I think in almost all the start sits, guys, bench Javonte. Like, I just told someone Tajay Spears over Javonte. Like, at least you get a real ceiling with Tajay Spears. Javonte's just had no juice this season, and you got to wait and see if Kenneth's going to play too. Like, if Kenneth hasn't practiced yet, by the time Pacheco plays, you got to go sharp. Hey, Sam, should I start Kelsey or Jonnu Smith for Saturday? Yeah. Man, the tight ends, like, I feel like tight ends this season, they went from, like, as bleak as it gets at the start of the season to, like, all of a sudden there's all these good tight ends to now we're back to, like, pretty bleak. It's pretty bleak out there. If you don't have McBride, it's bleak. If you don't have Bowers or Kittle, like, there's a huge teardrop here from McBride, Bowers, Kittle. Jonnu's been good. We have Jonnu ahead of Kelsey. Man, Kelsey, again, the whole reason is PPR again. The entire reason I had Travis Kelsey on my do not draft list was about the fantasy playoffs. That was the whole thesis. And we're one game in, and so far so good. 6.7 points for Kelsey last week. We saw the same thing last year. There's just something about the final stretch of the regular season where they saved Kelsey a little bit for the NFL playoffs. Noah Gray has been sealing work for weeks. I think it's Jonnu, man. Yeah, I think I'd go Jonnu over Kelsey. It feels weird, but I think I would do it. Lad or Bucky, I'd go Lad over Bucky. Penix or Nix, yeah. This is a really interesting one. I'm definitely very excited for Michael Penix. I think there's a strong narrative out there about Penix, who, like, to me, thinking back to the quarterback evaluation process back in the NFL draft, I think about, what are the critiques on some of these guys coming out, and, like, are those reasonable? Like, the critique for Jaden Daniels was unreasonable. The critique for Jaden Daniels was he takes big hits. He's going to get hurt. And guys, guess what? Every single NFL quarterback takes big hits. Every single NFL quarterback could get hurt. Like, I just didn't think that was a reasonable, like, biggest negative for Jaden Daniels. It's part of the reason I was very in on Jaden Daniels, one of my biggest hits really of the season. And for Michael Penix, really the biggest knock, people knocked him for his age. He played 6 years in college. If anything, I think that's a good thing for him as a rookie. And other people knocked him because his fellow wide receivers in college were so good. They wondered if it was him or he just happened to have really good receivers. He played with Jalen Polk in college. He had, who was it? Roma Dunze, Jalen Polk, and there's one other rookie receiver who hasn't been amazing. I'm blanking on who that other rookie was right now. I think it was Jalen McMillan. Yeah. So it's Jalen McMillan, Roma Dunze, and Jalen Polk, all who were drafted in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. That's who Penix played with. I mean, none of these guys have been unreal this season. McMillan's starting to pick it up. I like him this week. I think Dunze is still underrated, and Polk has been, awful and done basically nothing. But like ultimately, it might have been Penix that was elevating these guys to become top 2 round picks. Yeah, I'm excited for Penix. Obviously, a good spot for him, but I don't think the pass volume is like a lock to be there. So I would go with the two QBs tonight. I don't think you want to play Penix in the fantasy football playoffs. McLaurin or Dobbs, at least not in the first round, till we see him play like a full game and see what the pass volume looks like. They've been skewing super run heavy. Nix or May? Yeah, I'm going Nix. Saturday question: Pacheco or Swift? The Walter app has them nearly identical. And happy holidays. Thanks for the live. Yeah, I got you. I've got you guys all season, guys. This is our 16th straight Thursday night. Start Goff or Herbert. Yeah, I'm going Goff there. I would go Nix over Love. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm playing loud over Scary Terry. And then, yeah, Pacheco or Swift, man. That is not an easy call at all. You said the app has them super close. Let's look at this one. Yeah, back-to-back. Oh, God, Swift versus the Lions. I don't think he did much, right? Last time versus the Lions, no. 9.4, only at 39 rushing yards. He did have 2 catches. Snap shares there. Roshan's been hurt. Pacheco's role is growing, but he hasn't really done anything substantial fantasy-wise, under 10 points in all of these games. Not a good matchup versus the Texans. With Mahomes banged up, maybe they give him the ball more, but Hunt's going to mix in. I think you go Swift here. I think I'd go DeAndre Swift over Pacheco. Tough call, though, for sure. Falcons defense over the Broncos defense. Falcons defense over the Broncos defense. Packers defense over every single defense this week. Player prop pick. Yeah, Wade, I got you, man. We've been cashing, especially on Thursday nights. I actually think our percentage on Thursday nights is a decent bit higher than over the course of the season. We took a tough L too on Sunday with the Brian Thomas Jr. props. Get stuffed at the 1 yard line for the touchdown prop. He got, I think, 20 carries in the game. Still didn't even hit his rushing prop. He went negative yards on like 5 of those carries. But I like him on Vidal over 12.5 receiving yards a decent bit tonight. There's a lot of the odds. So the reception odds for Vidal over 1.5. That minus 170. The sportsbooks think it's very likely Vidal gets over 1.5 catches. At least 2 catches for him tonight. And Walter's projecting the same thing, at least 2 catches for Vidal tonight. I'd be shocked if he doesn't have at least a few catches. This just feels like a very low receiving yard line for a guy that's getting at least a few catches, that's averaging around this many yards per reception this season. He doesn't have a ton of volume in the receiving game, but he did have a career high season high snap percentage last week. He is by far the best receiving back on the team. He's playing at Broncos defense that he had 40 receiving yards and 2 catches against last time, scored a touchdown on one of those. And he's playing a Broncos defense that's been stout against the run, against running backs, but they've been so good against receivers for the most part, especially whoever Surtain is covering, that they've allowed actually a lot of receiving to running backs. They're allowing the 3rd most catches per game to running backs, the 6th most receiving yards per game to running backs. Yeah, Vidal's the play, I think, tonight. His receiving work tonight feels like it is way undervalued in the prop markets. Yeah, I like Vidal props tonight, both receptions and yards, but the receptions odds are pretty rough, so I think I'd lean towards the yards. Shout out to Cooper Kupp and Waddle last week. Lost my matchup by 1 point. That is so rough. So rough. And yeah, the one fantasy matchup I lost, I also had Waddle. Matchup was a smash for Waddle. The whole Dolphins offense fell apart last week, but obviously Waddle got hurt with a zero. Zeros in the fantasy playoffs is just so tough. And I actually do like Kupp this week. It's going to be so rough for all the people with Cooper Kupp last week to watch Cooper Kupp have a good game versus the Jets. This week, I think London over Kupp is fine. It's pretty close, though. Ladd or Jacoby? It's Ladd. Yeah, we talked through that one earlier in the live stream. Crazy to bench Tyreek for McMillan. Yeah, it's just a little bit too crazy, I think, for me. And again, I like McMillan. I do. I like McMillan a lot. Terry or Kupp? It's got to be Kupp. Will Lutz is a start. Yeah, both kickers tonight are starts because these are both offenses that can stall in the red zone. We've seen that play out this season. They're both top 10 in fantasy points per game. Cameron Dicker, the kicker, and Will Lutz. We got Will Lutz and Dicker as top 8 kickers this week in the Walter Picks app. Herbert or Richardson? I'm going Richardson over both QBs tonight. Anthony Richardson's been running, and he's been running a lot. He has at least 7 carries now. I think in every single game since he's returned from his injury. Let's pull this up. Yeah, at least 7 rushing attempts now in 4 straight games. He had 7 last week. His rush share has been at least 20% in basically every game. Every full game. Basically every full game. He has at least a 20% rush share. I mean, that's extremely valuable for fantasy. The matchup is good this week versus the Titans. Rodgers or Herbert? Yeah, I'm going Herb over Rodgers, but I could see a case for Rodgers too. I think it's extremely close. I don't love the Broncos defense tonight, but I don't hate them either. The Broncos defense has been good for fantasy. But the Chargers offense has been bad for fantasy defenses. Bo Nix or Caleb, I'd go Bo Nix. Who has picks? David, man, how we doing? You came to the right place. Walter Picks has got you. And my name is Sam. Classic mistake. Walter is the AI model that powers the Walter Picks app, which I have up on screen on the YouTube Live right now. But we like Vidal tonight. I like Vidal tonight. Walter likes Vidal tonight. And Walter rarely misses. I've rarely missed this season as well. Got the odds, the percentage accuracy to back it up. We tracked this all season. Let me break down the Vidal play. So the Broncos, again, they've allowed the 3rd most receptions per game to running backs this season. And they've allowed the 6th most yards per game to running backs this season. Kamani Vidal is coming off a career high 67% snap percentage. His odds go over 1.5 receptions on most books is at -170. But you're getting even odds on the yards. So I like the yards a little bit more than the receptions. I think both hit tonight, the receptions and the yards. I think that he gets at least 2 catches in this game. He's averaging 12.4 yards per reception this season. Gus Edwards is a complete 0 in the receiving game. He has 2 catches all season. See, I like Vidal a lot. Kamani Vidal. Pacheco or Kendre Miller? Probably go Kendre Miller there. I don't feel great about Pacheco. Why is Ladd safe against Broncos? Because it's unlikely he is blanketed by Pat Surtain tonight. They move Ladd around a lot in this offense. They'll move him into the slot. Surtain very rarely follows guys into the slot. We didn't see Surtain match up versus Ladd that much in their first matchup. Ladd didn't do amazing in that game, but he still had 9 fantasy points. Like, that's the floor for Ladd, is around 9 points, because he doesn't have games without good targets. He's had 1 game in his last 8 where he went under 5 catches, excuse me. 1 of his last 8 games has he had fewer than 5 catches. That's Ladd. And the game right before that stretch was the Broncos. But yeah, he's been on a tear, man. I think the floor is elite for Ladd. I think the ceiling's there. He's just so by far the best receiving option in this offense. We saw a 50% target share in his second to last game 2 games ago. He took a game off in between, but yeah, I feel very good about Ladd for sure. Love or Darnold? Not a Thursday night question, not a Saturday question here either, but yeah, I think it's Darnold over Love. The pass volume hasn't been there for Love, guys. He's a good quarterback and he can throw touchdowns, but the pass volume is just not there. Shakir or Smitty? Yeah, not a Thursday night one either, but man, it's a tough call actually. I'd probably go with Devontae Smith, but it's close. Pat, question for Walter's picking. Rachaad White or Tyrone Tracy in the company league here from our Pat Spitter, Pat. And I feel like this one's easy. It's not a bad matchup for Tracy. It's a great matchup, though, for White. And it's always tough to start the second best running back on his own team. You know, it never feels great when you're starting someone on your fantasy team that is not the best running back on their own team. But that's what happens when you're alongside Bucky Irving. And Rachaad White still had usable weeks alongside Bucky. The floor is definitely way better for Rachaad White. I think avoiding the Giants offense is probably the move here. Only 4.5 points for Tracy. He's been in the doghouse, like in and out of the doghouse, Tracy, all season with the fumbles, with the drop last week. I'm okay benching Tracy here for Rachaad White. Don't blame me, though, if you lose in the Walters Picking League. I'm trying to avoid last in that league. Absolutely brutal stuff. Ladd or Terry / DK? Yeah, I'm going Ladd. I'm going Ladd over Terry. I'm going Ladd over DK. I'm playing Ladd. Ladd versus London. Man, that's a tough call there. Oh, gosh. We got Drake London down at wide receiver 20 versus the Giants. Yeah, I think it is Ladd over London. I'm playing the Falcons defense over the Broncos defense easily. I'm playing Devontae Adams over Ladd. There's only a small group of receivers I'm playing over Ladd. There's only 12 of them. I'm playing Ladd over Sutton, by the way. So all these guys apply to Sutton too. Here's the guys I'm playing over Ladd and Sutton. Adams, Evans, Neighbors, Cup, JSN, AJ Brown, and then the obvious ones. Amon-Ra, Lamb, Jefferson, Nico, Puga, Chase. I mean, nobody's hopefully considering these guys to be benched for Ladd or Sutton. I'm playing Ladd and Sutton over T. Higgins. I think Ladd and Sutton versus Tyreek Hill is super close, man. Super close. I would argue that the floor for Ladd and Sutton, though, is a bit better than Tyreek. The ceiling's higher for Tyreek, though, for sure, especially with Waddle out. Jordan Addison, I think I played Ladd and Sutton over Jordan Addison. DJ Moore, I played Ladd and Sutton over DJ Moore. Ladd and Sutton over Brian Thomas Jr. is a question we've gotten a bunch tonight. I would go Ladd and Sutton there. Guys, if you're just tuning in to the live stream or you've been here for a bit and you haven't yet, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. I do appreciate it. It helps us out a ton, way more than you'd realize. If you're watching live on TikTok, guys, hit the follow button. I can't see your comments if you aren't following. That's how TikTok works. So hit the follow button. I do appreciate it, guys. And it's been a hell of a season. We are locked in to round 2 of the fantasy football playoffs. We're going to talk about Judy here in a sec. This is a good question. If you guys haven't checked out the Welter Picks app yet, I do not know what you're waiting for. Guys, the premium subscriptions, they are well worth it. Even at this point in the fantasy season, in the final stretch here, it's going to help you crush fantasy next season too. So many improvements coming for next draft season that we're already working on. It can help you all NBA and MLB season with player props and game betting insights too. Use code SAM when you sign up, by the way. It does help me out as well. Appreciate that. The best way you could possibly support me is checking out the app. It's in the YouTube description. It's in the TikTok bio. All right. Nick, audio. What's going on with the audio? Turn the turn the Bluetooth off here. That's probably it. Mike's probably better now. YouTube Live, is there mic issues? No, Mike's fine on YouTube. Let me know that TikTok Live, the audio's back. Herbert Arnold, pick 2. Yeah, I think you bench Love here. Thanks for that, guys. Baker or Nix? Yeah, you got to go Baker. I'm not benching Baker. Hey, Sam, good afternoon or evening. Good evening to you as well, Richard. Should I start Tua or Herbert? I don't know how we start Tua right now. I really don't. I was in on Tua last week. Much tougher matchup for him this week. No Waddle. Tough matchup defensive line-wise, offensive line and defensive line-wise. The pass volume's been there for Tua, but I'm definitely playing both QBs tonight over Tua. Ferguson or Henry. I think I'd probably go Hunter Henry there. Bowers or McBride, I have Murray. Yeah, you're not benching McBride. Hey, Sam, I made it for the next round. Thanks for what you do. Timothy, let's go, man. One game at a time in the fantasy football playoffs. I'm locked in, man. I'm pumped for round 2. Who do you have for QB starts over Bo Nix? Yeah, so let's run through it. We just ran through the receivers. I'm starting over Ladd and Sutton. That was a short list. It's a pretty short list for the QBs. Pretty interesting QB week. There's not a lot of amazing matchups. The obvious top guys, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, Lamar, you're starting these guys, with ease. They got you here. Baker Mayfield is the next best option in my mind this week. I do not want to bench Baker. I think that Bucs-Cowboys game's got a lot of shootout potential. We'll talk a lot more about that on the Sunday morning live. Sam Darnold, I like next. Then Kyler, Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, A-Rich. That's the end of the list. I'm playing Anthony Richardson over Herbert and Nix. I'm playing Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff, Kyler, Sam Darnold, and Baker. These are some of the guys you might be considering versus the guys tonight. Then it's Herbert, then it's Bo Nix, and then Jordan Love's after them. I'm not sure if I'd put Jordan Love this high. Personally, I might play Rodgers over him. I might even play Stafford. I think that Jets-Rams game has a chance for shootout potential. The problem for the Packers in passing attack this week is, they might not need to throw, and they don't want to throw. If they don't need to throw, they don't want to throw. We've seen some really low pass volume games for Jordan Love. He's been under 30 pass attempts now in 5 straight games. They want to run. He's been under 20 points in 4 straight games. What's the ceiling for Jordan Love if he's not going to clear 25 pass attempts? And Spencer Rattler started. No Alvin Kamara for the Saints too. What's the spread on that game? It can't be good. The Packers are 14-point favorites. Man, yeah, it's like a good matchup for him too. It's just the pass volume is not going to be there, I don't think, for Jordan Love, I'd play both QBs over him tonight. Yeah, and I'm going Darnold over Nix and over Herbert for sure. BTJ or Ladd, I'm going Ladd. Would you start Quentin Johnson tonight or Xavier Worthy on Saturday? Yeah, I think you got to go Xavier Worthy. I'm a big dog this week. Fading Broncos defense for Cardinals or Texans. Yeah, so I think it's the Cardinals. Yeah, go with the Cardinals against the Panthers. Bo Nix or Love. I'm going Bo Nix over Love. I'm playing Devontae Smith here in this spot over Jonnu and over Pacheco. DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson. I think I'd probably lean DJ Moore there. There's something going on here with Herbert or Nix. I'm going Herbert. Sutton or Adams. I'm going Adams. Pat or Baker. I'm starting Kelsey. I'm going Baker over Pat for sure. There's something with both Mike Evans and Devontae Adams right now that I don't think you can ignore. Devontae Adams, he is either, in his last 2 games of his NFL career and or like auditioning for his next team. Aaron Rodgers is auditioning for his next team, but there's a real chance that Devontae Adams retires after the season. He's 32 years old. He's got nothing left to prove. He gets to go out, playing with Aaron Rodgers. He has hinted, recently at a potential retirement. And if he is to retire, you got to think Aaron Rodgers knows that. And he just continues to pepper Devontae Adams with targets here in his last few games. Devontae Adams had a 43% target share last week. That's part of the reason you absolutely can't bench him. And part of the reason it's a little scary to be playing Garrett Wilson right now, as good as the Jets passing attack has been for fantasy. Hey, Sam, what do you think about Jerome Ford and Kendre Miller? I'd lean Kendre Miller over Jerome Ford. I do think that it's going to be, I think Dearness Johnson's going to be back for the Browns. We haven't seen Dearness Johnson in a while. Might not even be on the depth chart here. No, we haven't. Oh, sorry, Dearness Johnson on the Jags. Let me see this. Yeah, he's on the Jags. Yeah, so we got Jerome Ford. Deontay Foreman's probably going to mix in and Pierce Strong, too. Both are definitely viable. Nick Chubb obviously out. He did well here versus the Chiefs, which is actually pretty impressive. You got a good matchup for him versus the Bengals. And then we got Kendre Miller versus the Packers. Yeah, maybe it is Ford. Yeah, I'd go Ford, actually. It's actually really close. Wow, they're projected both 11.4. Yeah, I think I'd lean Ford, though, with the matchups there. McConkey or Judy, got to be McConkey. Yeah, so Timothy asked here about Judy. I actually don't think I talked about it much here. Judy versus McMillan. Oh, God, yeah, this is not an easy call, and you kind of have to go Judy here, I think. Like, I like McMillan a lot. Even more so than what we're projecting in the Walter Picks app at 9.3 here. McMillan's heating up, and we see talented rookies heat up this time of year every single season, and it's no different here with Jalen McMillan. Had a career-high 5 catches last week, a career-high 75 yards, scored a TD. Now it's 3 TDs the last 2 games. Now he gets a potential shootout versus the Cowboys. Like, sign me up for McMillan, man. I'm in on McMillan this week. But Judy's been a top 5 receiver in the NFL over the last six weeks, over the last month. Like, he is in the top 5 of basically every statistical category, partially because that, all-time revenge game in week 13 with 235 yards and 9 catches. But guys, another huge game versus the Chiefs last week, 11 catches in that one. And a bunch of those were from DTR. I definitely think he's a worse option with DTR. Like, he's benchable in a bunch of spots. But yeah, I'm playing Judy here over McMillan. I'm playing JSN over Sutton. I'm playing Ladd over Sutton tonight. Yep. I think I play Chase McLaughlin over Cameron Dicker, the kicker, and Will Lutz tonight. Ladd, Bucky, or JSN? Yeah, it's JSN. JSN. McConkey or Higgins? I'm going McConkey. Higgins hasn't practiced yet. Can Ladd get his average tonight? Yeah, for sure. I feel pretty good about Ladd tonight. I do. He didn't do amazing versus the Broncos last time, but Ladd's coming off a career-high, season-high snap percentage. Like, this is a playoff game, and he's by far their best offensive weapon. It's not even close. Like, both these teams, they actually feel so comparable heading into this game. Both of them need a win to get into the playoffs. Both of their QBs are like back-end QB1s. Both rank as like QB 11, QB 12. I lean Herbert over Bo Nix. I lean Ladd over Sutton. Ladd and Sutton rank back-to-back. Herbert and Nix rank back-to-back. And then the next best player on both of these offenses after Ladd and Sutton is miles behind Ladd and Sutton. Both like from the wide receiver perspective, but just overall. Gus Edwards, he's toast. Javonte Williams, he's been washed this season. Again, he ranks 35th out of 36 running backs over 100 carries and yards per carry. So I don't want to start Javonte. I'm definitely not starting Gus. Man, you leaning Lad or Bucky? Yeah, that's a tough call. I think I'm leaning Lad. It's such a good spot for Bucky Irving, though. I actually probably argue that Bucky's floor is even a little bit better than Lad's in this matchup. Seeing Bucky, play through the injury last week, only 13.3 against the Chargers, had 117 rushing yards though, 15 carries. Such a good spot versus the Cowboys, but I think it is Lad. I think it's Lad. The floor for Lad is also very good. Again, I don't think Pat Surtain shadows him in this game. We've seen at least 5 catches from him in 7 of his last 8 games. Can you rank these 3 wide receivers and 3 running backs? Kupp, Moore, Myers, and Najee, Kendre, Patrick Taylor. Yeah, so I rank them, I think, in this order. I think this is the order. Let's check out the running backs, though. Najee Harris, complete disappointment last week. If you had him, let's see here. Najee is still probably going to project for the best volume. Wow, yeah, look how close these guys are. I think it's Kendre over Najee, then it's Patrick Taylor. Wow, super close. I'm okay benching Najee. Walter Pick says Javonte is running back 22. Yeah, I don't think he finishes that high. And part of the reason he's so high is the projectable volume is good because there's no Jaleel McLaughlin. Like the volume in theory should be there. Like the theoretical projection for Javonte is not bad. The problem for Javonte is he's got 14 rushing yards on 18 rushing attempts in his last 3 games. He's not the best running back on the team still. I think he does lead the backfield in touches. He does play probably more than half the snaps, and he has a receiving role potentially too. And like part of the reason he projects as running back 22, he's projected to get, you can see it here in the game log view. If you're watching live on YouTube, the better live stream viewing experience. We got him for 45% of the carries, 12 carries, which gives him and he has the goal line role most likely on this offense. So he's projected for right around half a touchdown. That's ultimately what's driving up this projection. He's got an okay chance at a touchdown tonight without McLaughlin. But yeah, man, I think the floor is just so low. And this is just median projections here. You got to also consider the ceiling and the floor. And to me, just not there. Like these guys project not that far apart, but just much different options. Like Breece Hall could actually go over 25 points, and Javonte just has no ceiling. Absolutely no ceiling. Like, what's the best case for Javonte tonight? He falls in the end zone twice, maybe. Maybe if he does that, he gets over 15 points. I mean, it's rough, I think. Trying to start Javonte in the spot. Would you start Smart? There's a lack of tight ends. Other options: Komet, Jawan, Gesicki, Okonkwo. Yeah, I haven't seen any Stone Smart questions. And Hayden Hurst is going to be back tonight. Let me actually just refresh the news. We should get the official. Kenneth fully practices. Hayden Hurst is active officially. I don't think that changes a ton for Smart. I still think Smart leads this offense among tight ends on this offense tonight in targets and snaps, but it does probably bump him down a little bit to the point that I probably would look at these other options. You said Komet, Juwan Johnson. Yeah, Juwan Johnson's interesting. Gesicki. Oh, gosh. Gesicki or Okonkwo. Man, look how far down Kyle Pitts has fallen. Yeah, I think you probably go Juwan Johnson. Man, it's tough with – he only had 2 catches last week. Maybe you do go Smart here. Just came back from the injury. I mean, there's no weapons at all. Not a bad matchup. I'm okay going Stone Smart in this spot. I think it's fine. I do think Smart has a real role tonight. He's been playing well. He got better back-to-back games too. Dell, McMillan, Bateman. Yeah, this one's McMillan pretty easily. Hey, Sam, happy Thursday night. Happy Thursday night to you as well, Matt. Walter Picks app subscriber in the championship this week. Let's go, man. Yeah, I always forget not all leagues are like mine, where this week is the semis. Some leagues out there, we're in the final. Some weeks out there, you still got 3 weeks to go for the crazy people who like to play in week 18. All right, start sit here. Full PPR at wide receiver, Brown or Myers. Just found out recently A.J. Brown is now questionable. Oh, God. Let's check this out. Knee rest, gets limited practice. Knee/rest. He's not questionable. The knee is a little scary. But, yeah, in Myers doesn't play. Yeah, he doesn't play Saturday. Neither of these guys play Saturday. So you got some time, too, to get some more reports. But, yeah, it's got to be A.J. Brown. It's got to be A.J. Brown. If A.J. Brown's playing, it's a no-brainer, A.J. Brown. Would you start Jonnu or Njoku? Oh, I don't think we can start Njoku. You think you got to go Jonnu? I still am skeptical Njoku's even going to play. Will Surtain be on Lad? Yeah, this is a good question, and no. I really don't think he's going to be on Lad a ton. this game. Definitely at times he will be. Similar to what we saw in probably to even lesser extent than what we saw with Jerry Jeudy. If you remember that, all-time revenge game Jeudy had on a Monday night game versus the Broncos, we saw some spots where Surtain was matching up, but he really doesn't play that much shadow coverage. So when you can move your receiver around a lot, just like they do with Ladd, just like they do with Jeudy, you can get them off of Surtain pretty easily. Why are we starting AR over Nix? I'm still kind of confident with Love, but I don't know how that game shapes up. Yeah, I'm pretty nervous about Love's pass volume. I feel good about Love being efficient in that game. I think the Saints defense is terrible, and Jordan Love is definitely capable of having a very efficient game there. But what's the pass volume going to be? They're 14-point favorites, and they clearly want to be a run-first team. Like, you're banking on a 3+ touchdown game, which is possible. But if he doesn't throw at least 3 touchdowns, he's probably going under 15 fantasy points. AR over Nix it's purely based on the rushing volume and the matchups. Bo Nix, he threw 3 touchdowns last week and still didn't hit 20 points. 16.5, he threw 3 picks. Bo Nix last week, I don't know how you feel good about Bo Nix, like confidently tonight. And he's had a good season as a rookie, but last week was rough, guys. Bo Nix, he threw 3 touchdowns. He had 3.9 yards per pass attempts, his fewest in a game since week 4. 3.9 is brutally bad. It's brutally bad. And Anthony Richardson, he has at least 7 carries in 4 straight games now, every game since he's been back. Anthony Richardson does not have a full game this season where he went under a 20% rush share. Like, not comparable runners here. And the matchup's better for A-Rich too. I think the floor and ceiling, honestly, are probably better for A-Rich. We got the floor a little bit better for Bo Nix. If we go to the rushing stats here, I mean, not comparable rushing options. And it's not like Bo Nix is 0 from rushing category. Bo Nix did finally start running a bit more last week. Notable for fantasy, of course, 23 rushing yards for him. It was the most carries he's had since week 7. He had 8 rushing attempts. So that was good to see. That was actually more than A-Rich had last week, but I would definitely put my money on A-Rich to outrush him and much better chance at a touchdown too on the ground. That's my time, guys. Enjoy the banger of a Thursday night football game tonight. If I didn't get to your start sit, we got the hundreds on the slide, but if I didn't get to yours, make sure you go to the Walter Picks app, the best possible app to help you with start sit decisions for this tough Thursday night and for the Saturday games too. We're updating every single day for all the most relevant news and injuries. You will not find more accurate projections out there. Best way you can support me too is checking out the app. Appreciate you guys. Time is the most valuable thing we have. Thanks for spending some time with me tonight. Good luck in round 2. We'll be back live. You know it. Sunday morning. I'll talk to you guys soon. Good luck tonight, everybody.